I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. So I can't lie to you guys, I am running on very little sleep. I also ended up in the ER today, so it has not been a great day health-wise, but long story short, I do have some news to go over. It was a slow news day anyway, so just a few updates, and one little kind of different, interesting story that I came across that I probably would have gone more in depth with if I had had more time today. But anywho, let's go ahead and jump into it. We have no mini stories, so we're getting right into the meat of it. First up, the California shooter was found after an apparent suicide. So after that whole manhunt for the culprit, the gunman in California was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. It turns out he was inside that white van that we had discussed yesterday. As the police and bomb squad closed in on the vehicle, they heard a loud bang, and inside they found the gunman dead shortly after. The man was actually 72 years old, and again, he was an Asian male. So this is not our typical demographic for a mass shooter. If you want more background info on this latest shooting, you can head to yesterday's episode where we go through everything. But the motives here behind this rampage are still kind of unknown. I saw one headline that alluded to maybe it was a love interest gone wrong or something like that, but it still seems kind of extreme for killing 10 people. The man who stepped in and actually stopped the shooter physically is being profiled by major publications across the US and is a true hero. There was actual video footage in the room where he was able to disarm this man, and basically what had happened, and this is just my understanding because again, I just didn't have as much time to go into things today as I usually do. It seems that the 10 killings that were committed were at a separate location. He got out of there fine and went to a second location to try and do the same thing all over again, and somebody stepped in, this man, and disarmed him, and that was all captured on camera, and it was really incredible. The two were having like a wrestling match over this giant semi-automatic weapon, so it was totally terrifying. Also, something I learned was that this type of weapon is prohibited in the state of California, but obviously he had it. Our hearts go out to this community of people who is hurting today, and our prayers are with you. For our second story today, we're touching on a cave village in Tunisia. So this is a story that I was saying I probably would have dug more into because it was totally fascinating, and you guys should totally look this up. But for over 1,000 years, so about 5 times the length of the time America has existed as a country, people have inhabited this series of caves in Tunisia. They live off of olive farming and sheep herding, and their city is literally built into the face of a red sand mountainside. It was a spot that was even once used for a set of Star Wars. But this community that has survived here for so long is now coming under threat. A severe drought is plaguing the area and making their way of life completely unsustainable. But people have limited other options. They can brave the seas and attempt to immigrate to Europe, as many of their friends and family have done. centuries of farming are coming to an end, and more people are leaving this town each day. And the remaining residents tend to be older, and they're starting to wonder what their town of about 500 remaining people might look like empty. The pandemic also hurt their only other industry, which is tourism. Everyone stayed at home, and now with the drought killing the crops, there's just not enough cash flow to speak of, and it was a place that was already poor and was already isolated, but today it's more so than ever. Can it survive? Only time will tell. And for our last story today, the curious case of George Santos just continues to get weirder and weirder. So the talented Mr. Santos is that newly elected Republican congressman who was backed by Donald Trump and pretty much fabricated his entire life story on the campaign trail. He alleged things like having worked at Goldman Sachs when he hadn't, that his mother had died in 9/11 when she didn't, and that he was Jewish when he isn't. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. He also fabricated a ton of other really sensitive things, where he went to school, things of that nature. But one thing that he is, as it turns out, is gay. And this is one of the few things that he seems to have been honest about on the campaign trail. But just recently, photos surfaced of him in drag down at a festival in Brazil. And even though there are pictures of him that day, and they're very clearly him, he denied being a drag queen, saying, quote, "No, I was not a drag queen in Brazil, guys. I was young and having fun at a festival. Sue me for having a life." End quote. He also said that the idea of him performing in drag was, quote, "categorically false," end quote. But he did admit that's him in the photo, you know, with a full face of makeup, false eyelashes, chandelier earrings, and wearing a feathered red dress. Terminology be damned. If that's not a drag queen, I'm not sure what is. But according to Politico, his career as a drag queen is actually quite prolific. He admitted online to having started his, quote, "stage life" at age 17 as a gay nightclub drag queen, end quote. With this man, genuinely nothing is as it seems, and every day he adds to his heap of lies that he has told the American public, all while serving in U.S. Congress. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "A smooth sea never made a skillful sailor." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfreemedia. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.